Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It's my privilege and great honor to welcome you here in Campus Hybernská on behalf of Charles University. My name is Tomáš Vokáč and I'm a director of Campus Hybernská and also Charles University Foundation. And I think that today we are bringing very, very important topic here, how to improve the situation of women in science and how to build a respectful environment for women in science. And here in Campus Hybernská, we are very proud of having very respectful and peaceful environment. So I really hope that we will have a great discussion. And my paper in a hand, the reason is that we have had many great guests today and many names, and that's why I have written them down. So please allow me to welcome Johanna Borchert, the head of Press Department, British Embassy in Prague, German Embassy. I was working for British institution for 9 years, so sorry for that. Of course, German Embassy, and we are very happy and proud of a constant and continuous cooperation with German Embassy. Of course, welcome Johanna. Of course, I would like to welcome our great guests, Petra Gimpelová from Friedrich Schiller University Jena, and Karolina Korvasová from Charles University, Matouš Glanz, Director of Expats in Science, who is going to lead our discussion this evening. And also I would like to thank Barbara Boušová from DAAD, helping us host this great event. And the last but not the least, Milena Vicenová, where are you, Milena, who is the leader of Café Collaborations here, has been a leader for many years, and my great team of Charles University here in campus. So please welcome, enjoy the discussion. And now, Johanna, please, the floor is yours from German Embassy. I'm sorry again.
Thank you. No problem. Yes, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Let me welcome you also on behalf of the German Embassy. And first of all, I would also like to thank Campus Hybernská for the co-hosting of this event and for organizing this with us and for the excellent cooperation. Like it was already said, equal opportunities and gender equality play an important role or are an important topic overall in society, but also in science and academia. And therefore, it is great that we have such an excellent panel today on this topic. And two of them are women who have worked their way up in academia and through the often mentioned glass ceiling. So I'm looking forward very much to hearing them talk about this topic and how the situation in science for women can hopefully be improved, because we have in many countries still the situation that we lose a lot of potential when it comes to the participation of women in academia, and a lot of work ahead of us. That goes also for Germany and for the Czech Republic. I hope that you also all enjoy this evening and the discussion and that we get some fruitful insights. Thank you very much. And with this, I give the word to Lucia Valois. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johanna. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lucie Válova and I work for Charles University, and it's also my great pleasure to welcome you all at this very nice event. And the same as the director, I have also one paper because I decided to tell you several very short stories at the very beginning. Don't be afraid. Very short. The first one. I tried to apply for the grant, but I would have to work 48 hours a day, and with my lab work, lectures and kids, it was just impossible. The second story. I know that one day I will have to choose my beloved science or family. The third story. I was thinking of making a podcast about my research, but my teacher told me nobody would listen. Fair enough. And number 4, I wanted to apply, but I felt I wasn't good enough. So, ladies and gentlemen, I guess that you know that these are real stories of women that I know. My work at Charles University is a FameLab national manager. Maybe you have heard about FameLab. FameLab is the world scientific leading competition, I would say. And I have a chance to work with many men, but also many women, especially young scientists. And we share experience. They share with me their fears through just talks or some feedbacks. So I know that the situation of women in science in the Czech Republic, I wouldn't say is desperate, but it's not so good. And there is still so much to do about that, so much space. So I personally, even though I'm not a scientist, I know the situation and I know the topics that women in science have to deal with. And I personally welcome every chance to talk about that and maybe even to do something about that. We try so much in FameLab. We try to give them support. And maybe you say it's just a contest, right? It's just one drop in the ocean. But I do believe if we have helped at least one woman in science or a man, we did a good job. So maybe this is the way. So I'm looking forward very much for discussion. And now I will pass the word to Matouš Glanz. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary people, dear guests, I want to thank the German embassy in the Czech Republic and Campus Hybernská for the invitation and the trust to chair this discussion. But more importantly, I want to thank you for hosting the event and bringing up this ever important topic of equal opportunities in science. My name is Matouš Glanz, and as was mentioned, I'm the director of Czechspats in Science. This is an independent, grassroots, non-profit organization that aims to inspire and improve the science environment in Czechia by leveraging the potential of the Czech science diaspora and scientists with international experience in the Czech Republic. And we envision Czech science to be open, world-class and ambitious. And we are convinced that improving academic culture is a key aspect of reaching this vision. And in turn, we see equal opportunities in general and gender equality in particular as a cornerstone of such a healthy workplace culture, not only in academia, but in any area of human activity. And it is thus not only a great pleasure and an honor, but also a great deal of responsibility and a pivotal part of our mission to facilitate this discussion on how to improve the situation of women in science with two prominent members of the community of Czechspats who are here tonight. So please allow me to once again introduce Petra Gimplova, who is an academic researcher and a lecturer in social sciences with a specialization in international political theory and international law. And Petra's research focuses on state sovereignty, justice, human rights, natural resources and their governance and global commons. And currently Petra works as a principal investigator at the Friedrich Schiller University in Jena, where she leads a project called The Transformation of the Global Commons and the Future of the Planetary Ecosystems. Welcome, Petra. And we also have Karolina Korvasova, who is a mathematical biologist specializing in computational neuroscience. And after completing a PhD at the University of Aachen in Germany, Karolina recently returned to Czechia, where she received the Primus grant of the Charles University, and she currently leads the Neural Ensembles and Memory Group at the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics at the Charles University. Welcome, Karolina. Dear Petra and Carolina, to start, I would like to ask each of you to introduce yourselves a little bit deeper and maybe focus a little bit on the topic of the night. So if you would mind to mention what does gender equality or the situation of women in science mean to you personally, and perhaps share some specific experience, positive or negative, that you might have with the topic. So Petra, would you mind to start?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and speak about this topic that I really personally care deeply about. I left Czech Republic in the early 2000s when I was at the beginning of my PhD work, and so at that point I decided to embark on doctoral studies and academic career abroad, more specifically in the United States, and this topic of gender inequality was actually one of the reasons why I decided to leave Czech academia. So I guess, like, on one hand, one of the reasons why I decided to leave was these very uncertain prospects for women in the academia, but also, and perhaps even more importantly, it was like the pervasive culture of sexism and sexual harassment everywhere, at the university, at some research institutes. And I felt like I wasn't taken seriously enough, and that I just, didn't have like prospects of pursuing this kind of path seriously. So I decided to leave, and I spent several years in the United States where I pursued my PhD. And so in the United States, what I noticed, or my experience from academia, but maybe even like society more generally, is that gender equality is pretty advanced in the United States. I mean, as you may know, as you I'm sure you know, it's a very liberal society, and gender equality is pretty advanced compared to other Western countries. But I noticed that it comes with very heavy costs for women to succeed, to be successful in the academia. I mean, costs related to not having a family, not having children, and perhaps most importantly, this demand to approximate or to fulfill the highest standards of excellence and performance that have been set by by a person who's usually childless. It's male, it has a certain cultural capital. So it was a very ambiguous experience. And when I finished my degree, I got a job in Germany. So I live and work in Germany since 2010. And in Germany, I experienced, or I have been experiencing still, actually what could be even called like a massive positive discrimination. I mean, Germany is a country where which seeks to improve the situation of women, or achieve gender equality in science, in research, but in other areas, other domains. So there's this impressive attempt to achieve more gender balance and diverse society, and academia more specifically. So I was, I lived this experience. I was part of this process. I'm a happy beneficiary of this process, because one of my positions that I had was a gender hire position. So I was hired because I'm a woman. I also served as equal opportunity officer at one of the institutions that I worked at. So I helped to design and implement some of the equal opportunity measures that we were allowed to design for ourselves at this one institution. So I'm a huge advocate of this cause, and I have this both negative and positive experience. And so I'm happy, to discuss the topic and share the experience with, what happens in Germany now.
Thank you so much. Karolina, would you follow up?
Thank you very much. I also want to start by thanking the German Embassy and Campus Hybernska for organizing this event. And so I started by studying mathematics at the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics. I did my bachelor's, and then I wanted to do mathematical biology, which was not quite possible here. So I moved to the Netherlands first, where I did my master's. Then I spent 1 year in Australia as a research assistant in Melbourne, and then 8 years in Germany, where I did my PhD, and I also had 2 children during my PhD. So I have personal experience from Germany with actually having children or small children and being in academia. And then I decided to return, mostly for personal reasons. When our son was about to go to school, we decided to come back. And I first was a postdoc at the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics, and then I got the Primus grant to establish my own group, which is now the new thing I'm experiencing this year. For me, I think gender equality, apart from the rather obvious things, which are super important, but I think valid everywhere, that everybody should feel safe and respected and so on, I want to mention 2 things, which come from my personal experience from an environment which is rather gender imbalanced, right? At the at the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics, we have 5% of female professors. I think one of them is that people should not be afraid to develop. And I'll just tell a story to this. So when I supervise students, I do have the feeling that there is a bias. When male students come to me and they want to discuss a topic for their thesis, we discuss whether it's interesting, whether it's relevant, and so on. And women, they more often tend to have doubts whether they manage. Just a few days ago, it happened to me that a student came and said, "Oh, this is a very interesting topic, but I don't know if I manage." And I said, well, of course you are going to manage, and we do it exactly like that, because we brainstorm together, plan, come up with the exact plan for you, what you do, and that's my job to plan it such that you manage, right? And then I was thinking about it for some time when preparing for this discussion, and actually a very old memory came to me from my own exam in mathematical analysis in my first year of bachelor's. And so I passed the exam actually with the best grade, and then the professor asked me, "Are you considering a career in mathematics?" And I was like, "Oh no, of course not, I would not manage," right? So, and then this is now very distant to me, but actually I was thinking exactly in the same way back then. So I think this is one important thing, that we don't lose people just because they don't trust themselves. So we should create an environment where everybody actually is not afraid to develop, right? And the other thing, I think as far as I know, we lose most women from academia around the time when they have children. So this is obviously another topic that is very important. I believe that Germany is a great example that we should follow here. I really have very good experience with having children and doing my PhD in Germany. We probably discuss that in more detail later, I guess. But that's the second important topic, how to make sure that women stay in science, actually.
Gender equality, or unfortunately, to be probably more precise, the lack of gender equality is a complex issue, which is definitely not limited to academia, and this is something that in most of these similar discussions comes up. So I would like to tackle that right at the start. So again, unfortunately, how to improve the situation of women in science is part of a bigger question: how to improve the situation of women. Period. But in your view, because within the limited time, I guess we cannot aim to touch on all on the societal aspects, but really focus on the specifics of science. So in your view, which part of the problem are societal, which are specific to science, and on the other hand, do you see some aspects of gender inequality that are perhaps specific even to individual fields within science? Petra, what do you think? Mm-hmm.
So I guess the problem of gender equality / inequality in science is I guess similar if we think about what is the problem with gender inequality in a society at large, right? I mean, I think on a most profound level, it's just simply unjust, right? It's a form of inequality that is hardly justifiable. So it's a question of, you could say, human rights or fairness or inequality or equality that every person, regardless gender, ethnicity, religious background, sexual identity, and so on, is entitled to. And of course, gender equality has all kinds of benefits, economic, social, and so on. I suppose we do not have to repeat all those benefits that are being emphasized. I suppose for science, more specifically, gender equality is important because it's not only about fairness, but it's also about improving the research as such, right? So research simply is better. It can be more excellent. And it's about like harnessing the potential of half of the population. So this is being often emphasized as one of the main reasons why gender equality has to be achieved in the academia. So my field is social sciences. I suppose for social sciences specifically, the important task is to address the facets of this issue and the consequences and negative impacts of absence of women in the academia. I don't have experience with other fields, and I do suppose that there are some differences between different categories of sciences, like life sciences, engineering, or natural sciences, and they all have their specific reasons why gender equality is a problem. I guess, I don't know, fields like medicine, for example, or other life sciences always have to consider like gender-specific categories of entities, let's say, or humans, and how they differ biologically and so on. For social sciences, like I said, it's I think I see the most important task to really examine why this is a problem and what kinds of negative consequences this problem has for a society, broadly speaking. But I suppose Karolina can speak more about this other field of knowledge and sciences.
I think my answer will be maybe a bit more practical. So I think I see some problems specific to science when it comes to having a family, particularly because, namely, in relation to project-based funding, right? So if you want to have children, whether you are a man or woman, but I do think that actually this affects women a little bit more, even if we really do our best and try to have, equal approach, basically, and the parents really share the childcare and the work and everything. I still, some things simply will never be completely equal. Like, for example, with my first child, I had to be in the hospital during my pregnancy, right? This will not happen to the man. So simply, and then if you are employed on a scientific project, which lasts exactly for 3 years, and the work has to be done, and you cannot be replaced by anyone because it's part of your PhD plan, right? So then it becomes very challenging, and I was in quite a fortunate situation that I was actually not funded from such a project, but still I did feel the responsibility, like, can I, actually leave now? And I was told actually by some bosses that this is very irresponsible to spend 1 year at home with your child, which I did. And then I actually took the advantage of the German system, and I worked part-time until my children were 3 years old. And this was also seen as a very irresponsible thing to do. because who is going to do the work? So I did put like a sticker on my forehead that I'm irresponsible because I did spend some time with my children. And yet, I mean, of course, my husband also shared the parental leave, and he was also at home. So it was not like it was just on me, but still, this is a problem. And particularly if really someone is funded from a type of grant where you have to report every single small thing that has to be done by a certain deadline and so on, then it's extremely challenging for the PI, of course, of the grant, for the person who wants to take the leave, and so on. So this, I think, is for me the biggest like specific problem to science. And then maybe also when I just also discussed with my colleagues, I think it's also money, that people just leave science because they don't have money. Because when you have a family, simply you need more money, right? So, and this also applies to men apparently. And I've heard like several concrete stories how actually men also left science because they needed to earn more money for the family. But of course also for women, that's a problem. So.
Yeah. If I can follow up on that, I agree. I think the project-based organization of research today is indeed hugely disadvantageous for women. But on the other hand, or I would like to share the experience of witnessing this transition in Germany in the field where I work, like social sciences, humanities, like political science, philosophy, critical theory, and so on. And I've been living and working in Germany for more than 15 years, and when I came, this was not a norm to do a PhD within a funded research project. Normally, you would have a chair, like professor, and the professorships have their resources. They have several. Wissenschaftliche Mitarbeiter is the German term, like the research assistants or scientific personnel. And that would be like a normal employment at a university. So within that structure or within that institution, you would normally pursue a PhD, do a research, teach, and then in case of having a family, you would normally like interrupt and then come back to your own project. But now, I think most of the PhDs, or the way how to pursue a PhD in Germany across all the fields, not just these other fields like natural sciences, but this has become a norm in social sciences as well. So to do a PhD, you do it within a research project funded by some external funding institution, and this is. It's impossible to just interrupt and then come back to, because the project ends within 3 years, 4 years. So if you want to start a family, I don't know if you have other care responsibilities or you get sick, you're simply out of luck. Yeah. So this is now being thematized and discussed as a huge problem for women. And as far as I know, there is a reform that seeks to address it, but currently it's still not being addressed and has disproportionate impact on women.
Yeah, I think there are examples of grant funding providers that try to improve this by, for example, enabling a reduced workload and then a proportional extension of the duration of the grant, which is definitely a great step forward. The grant agency of the Czech Republic is now preparing a specific program aimed at supporting parents returning to science after a parental leave, which I believe we hopefully will see some of these good things. They're just a tiny contribution from I'm a laboratory biologist by background, and there is another aspect, because some of the techniques, some of the chemicals we work with in a lab are really life-threatening to the fetus. So when women are pregnant, they cannot really work properly, and then there are different approaches to tackle that. Either you leave it completely up to the woman to decide and take any risks, which unfortunately I think happens quite a lot in Czechia, or in some countries that they will immediately, from the moment a woman announces a pregnancy to the employer, she will be forbidden from coming to work. She gets paid, but then doesn't make any progress. And then there are the most progressive institutions that dedicate specific lab space, which is pregnancy safe, and then do their best to allow the women to continue however they can. So this is another maybe field specific aspect to keep in mind. But I don't know if you want to still touch on something related to what is societal and what is specific to science. Maybe Karolina, if you have some additional thoughts on that, or we just move on.
I have maybe one topic which also relates to maybe the other topics as well, but that's I think seeing role models, and so particularly at the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics, I think it's really important to have some role models, especially if you do science and you want to, for example, have children. So for me, it was personally really important to see some professors who managed, and to see how they manage, and to see how they think about it, how they combine the work and the family. And it was really inspirational for me. And this is, for example, at our faculty, very difficult. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if it was possible to graduate from our faculty and not meet a single female teacher, right? So, this, I'm not sure if it's only specific to science or maybe just to some fields of science even, but I do feel that at our faculty this is an issue, and I'm really actively trying to, myself, let's say, support students and women in that way, to show them that it is possible to actually be a mother and still be at the faculty.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe this will now bring us to some very specific measures which we can see as the core of the discussion. So I guess we all agree that the situation of women in science is not ideal. We want to improve that everywhere. Maybe in Czechia a bit specifically. So I want to ask you now, what are some specific measures that you have experienced, and which of those do you think work well, which work less well, and if you see any differences between, since we are at an event hosted by the German embassy in Czechia, if you see any differences between Germany and Czechia. You've mentioned some already, but maybe to be a bit more specific, and where can the two countries perhaps draw inspiration from one another, if you can reflect on that a bit.
Yeah, well, these are a couple of questions, so if I now start speaking and it feels like a kind of paper presentation, then you have to stop me. Okay, I guess first thing that I want to emphasize or mention is that in Germany, the organization of research and the academia has this advantage of being really, there's this umbrella organization, Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, that really all the universities, research institutes, other all kinds of like research and academic institutions are part of this organization. So it's like a self-governing body for all things science and research in Germany. It gets enormous sums of money from federal government, but also from the individual German states. And this organization, DFG, has this project of improving the situation of women in science since a couple of years ago, and it constantly steps up the efforts to improve situation of women in science and research. until there's actually now a new initiative since 2022 where all the existing efforts are taken, to another level. And I would even say that some of these norms are not, they no longer have a status of recommended guidelines or soft norms or ethical standards. They actually are reaching a status of some sort of, I would even use the word like constitutive or constitutional norms. Yeah. So, for example, if DevGe gives funding to research clusters or projects, you have to show how you fare on the issue of gender equality. It seems to me that, we could even say that the norm of gender equality has some sort of conditionality status in German academia. It's the main criteria considered in the approval of funds, creation of research centers, clusters, graduate centers, and so on. I'm not sure if such a overarching systematic effort exists in the Czech Republic. Somebody, I suppose, else have to brief us on that. So within that. Within that environment, every academic institution and university is, operating within that kind of environment. And since, like I said, if you pursue a PhD in Germany, I don't have a statistic, but I don't think. It's a far-fetched guess to say that 90% of all the PhDs research, graduate research is within research projects funded by DevGe. So these norms are really built into the funding. They are built into the organization of research. They are built into how research projects are reviewed, how they are assessed, how you write them. How there are requirements that you have to reflect how your research improves the diversity standards, gender equality standards, what kinds of impacts your research have for these kinds of social goals, and so on. Yeah, so it's like a pervasive emphasis on this norm. So that's one part of the answer. Then the second part of the answer, I wanted to share with you the measures that I have very positive experience with, and practices, institutions, or measures that I live with on a daily basis, working, at a German university, and at the same time, having funded project that is part of this. It's a part of a big research cluster that is funded by DevGe. Yeah. So, I guess the first one that I would like to mention is gender hiring. Yeah, gender hiring or active identification of appropriate female candidates in searches. This is a very common thing. Yeah, the existence of equal opportunity office that exists on university level, but there are lower level equal opportunity or diversity offices within small research communities or even faculties. We have our own equal opportunity office in our research cluster, and this is a really amazing thing. I cannot imagine, working in an environment where this is not available, where I can, go and any problem, issue I have, something I want to discuss, this is the first, place where I take it, where I can informally, see what procedures are available, what solutions are available. Because yes, it's sometimes it's really difficult to, go directly to a director or manager. So this gives you really an opportunity to address something in some, without fearing kinds of, consequences of your complaints or uneasiness and so on. Then there are these informal daily scientific practices that we implement. I have had experience with those from several institutions. And so just to give you an example, like we have implemented discussion and moderation guidelines for all kinds of, colloquia, conferences, all kinds of academic events where we, for example, collect the questions, and then we reshuffle the order of, who asks first, and make sure that, women or younger researchers are prioritized on that list, to avoid these practices of like mansplaining and, giving the floor to the most senior professors who usually then, give these long speeches. Yeah. And by the way, we limit the speaking time. I should somebody guess they could apply to me at this point. But this is something I wanted to say, that if I had to choose one most favorite measure, I would choose this. Like a strict application, implementation of discussion and speaking guidelines in classroom, academic events, colloquia, and so on. Yeah. Well, my list is really long. So, should I go on? I don't know.
Yes. So maybe choose one or two more, and then we can keep the rest for the next phase of the discussion.
I think I should avoid speaking for too long. Yeah. So let me see. We implement family-friendly scheduling. Yeah. So no evening events, no evening important evening. Speeches and so on, availability of childcare at conferences. What I also think is crucial, and I have had an amazing experience with, is that every network, however small it is, always have a PhD representation and participation. The Germans call it Mittelbau. Mittelbau are people who either do their PhD or are in the postdoc phase. So these people usually form a small body and elect a representative, then sits in the meetings and participates in designing everything. All aspects and levels of management. Procedures for dealing with sexual harassment are always in place. I guess, I'll stop here.
Yeah, so gender hires, equal opportunities, offices, and strict guidelines for discussions would be the
wide
highlights.
Offer of workshops, maybe something I would mention also, that this is the work of equal opportunity offices. They offer range of workshops that help you foster skills such as identifying discrimination, learning how to communicatively oppose discrimination, how to mitigate bias in communication or decision-making process, how to speak up, how to learn, speak confidently and louder, how to deal with sexism, how to become proactive agent of change yourself. Just an anecdotal, last sentence. Anecdotal. Recently, I was co-organizing a conference, and we invited a male scholar to a panel, and we had only one woman on the panel, and he said that he won't come until there will be gender parity on the panel. So some men become these proactive agents of change in that regard, and this I've seen that, I've experienced that couple of times, and that's very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, this is indeed impressive. Often you hear, why don't you have any women on the panels? We tried hard, but we couldn't find any, and that's it. People just give up. This is a great example. Karolino, measures that have worked in your experience or haven't.
Yeah, I think the most important measure that very well worked in my experience was flexible planning of the parental leave when I had children. So in Germany, this is really amazing. I think that you can really plan your parental leave as you like. I mean, decide who stays at home for how long. It's possible that one partner works in the morning and the other partner works in the afternoon, right? And that makes life so much easier. And reduces stress so much. And I think this is not possible here in the Czech Republic. As far as I know, you have to decide, and then basically the burden is really a lot on one. I think, as far as I know, it can be the woman or the man, but it's just on one, and it's impossible to switch flexibly like this. And I think that would be, in my opinion, really the one thing that would help the most. I do have experience with the Equal Opportunities Officer. When I did my PhD, I worked in the Research Center Jülich. And there I visited the Equal Opportunities Officer several times. But I think, so it was really, really helpful. But I think it was actually a bit more because I was a foreigner and I didn't know the law so well and the rules in Germany. So she really helped me a lot. But I'm not sure if this was like really gender specific or rather more like foreigner-specific issues. And then I think one thing I don't have experience with, but that I would find great as a measure would be mentoring. I know that our faculty is actually starting some kind of mentoring program for, I think, people at different stages of their careers. And I think that's a great thing. So in relationship to what I mentioned before, that maybe at the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics, you don't really have so many natural role models. It would be really great to actually have active mentoring and people that can help you. I don't really have a negative experience with any measure, I think. But one thing I think I want to share is some kind of personal feeling that I actually wouldn't be happy to be hired or receive a grant because I'm a woman. For me, it's very, very important that I receive a grant because the idea that I submitted is good, or that I get a position because I'm the right person for the position and not because I'm a woman. So for me, like measures that are, let's say, too aggressive in positive discrimination, I wouldn't appreciate so much, actually.
Right, but then, speaking semi-specifically, if then it happens that out of 30 awardees of a grant competition, there is one woman, or zero, with the argument that simply the men were the better candidates, do you think then that is okay?
No, of course. I mean, that's strange, right? So, I mean, I think this is very difficult. So certainly, I think there is something wrong about this, that women just don't get the grants for some reason. And I think the reasons are probably very complicated. And I think we should definitely support women and create the environment that they have the equal opportunities. But maybe this is an important distinction of equal opportunities and actually enforcing equal distribution, right? So I'm more the fan of creating equal opportunities than enforcing equal distribution. So
right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I beg to disagree with this. I think gender hires are perfectly justifiable, and I'll tell you why. I think that this is, by the way, still one of the biggest problems or one of the biggest obstacles in achieving gender equality is that the competition is very unfair, and it's unfair because the standards of excellence we inherited from the past, and they were set not by women, not by people who have to interrupt their life paths, through care work. So you often, compete with somebody who's like more excellent than you, has many more publications, traveled, person that has been at many more conferences simply has much bigger output. But this standard of what is the standard of achievement or excellence is problematic in itself, and I think we have to readopt what we see as a in law. There's this concept reasonable person standard. Yeah, so you have to adopt this idea to like a normal person or a woman. Yeah, so maybe by hiring women simply because they are women and are good enough, or excellent enough, will help us also undermine this like overachieving standard, overachievers standard of excellence, which I very much dislike. Yeah, and also one more thing. Yeah, today if you apply for professorship in Germany, like it always goes to a woman. Like this is what they do. Yeah, this is a very explicit, open, transparent, positive gender discrimination that is going on, and I think it's correct. I think that's right. Yeah, because there are only still 20% of all professors in Germany across all the fields are women, and this has to be. We have to correct that imbalance. So.
I agree with that. And also I think it's really important to compensate, right? But this also relates to the equal opportunities and what I was saying before, that simply there is some kind of gap for reasons, and that maybe right now the opportunities are not equal, and we definitely need to do something about that. I totally agree with that. I think this is maybe more about the speed, right? Like how fast we correct it, actually, the actual measures that we take. But what I really meant is really my personal feeling, that I just want to mention this, that this correcting also comes with, it's not like black and white, and that everybody would be happy to be positively discriminated. So for me, it's really personally not a very positive feeling to be discriminated like that.
Sorry, we don't need to dwell on this, but then can it be for you personally a question of how this is framed? Like if you consider an open call for a group leader where everybody can apply, but then women will be positively discriminated. I understand this is something you would not feel comfortable with, but if you frame it in a way that we are looking for a female group leader, and then you make gender, the eligibility criterion that you select the best based on solely the merit, but on the condition that it is a woman because men cannot apply, would that make a difference for you?
I guess I can imagine that it can be about details, right? Actually, like whether it's unpleasant or not. But, for example, like sometimes I felt that there is some kind of, let's say, unpleasant kind of communication, that people were commenting on a woman, the grant she submitted actually wasn't so good, but she got it because she was a woman, right? And this is actually really, really unpleasant. Like, you don't want to hear this. So I agree. It's about details and about the entire culture.
I was going to say that's maybe then a cultural thing. I wanted to just ask to fill us in on, you mentioned the flexible parental leave as the one thing that works the best for you. So does that work on the level of the institution or on the national policy level?
I think this is the national policy level in Germany, yes.
Maybe then we are already touching on that, but I wanted to ask if you see any really structural barriers either on the national level or within the scientific enterprise that hinder progress. Even if there are the best measures, best efforts, there is something behind that limits any progress in the gender equality. So what are those, if any?
Yeah. No, I think this is a hugely important issue and subject, and I was praising German academia, but this is one of the less impressive aspects of German academia. And I personally feel to be a victim, let's say, of this. Yeah, and it's a problem that German academia does not really does not have a tenure track system. Yeah, so you go from one limited contract to another. You get stuck in a postdoc phase for unlimited period of time, despite the fact that it's actually illegal. Yeah, so there's this gray zone now currently in Germany, because on one hand there's a legal regulation that allowed universities, because they universities and institutions that hire like creative people. Yeah, so legal regulation is such that universities are allowed to employ researchers or academics for more than one limited contract. Yeah, it's called. It has this horrible name. Yeah, Wissenschaftliche Zeitvertragsgesetz. It's one of those ridiculous German names. There's this 12-year rule, so you can be employed on a several limited, like time-limited contracts. Altogether, it should not exceed 12 years. But then, if you have a project that is funded, by some foundation or Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, then you can, go on being, employed on a project, this project basis, So the situation where people get stuck in the postdoc phase until the age of like 50 or late 40s, it's super common, in Germany. And then it's combined with the system where you become a professor in Germany, not through being promoted by a university where you work, but through application, like an external application process. It's like a market system. Yeah, you actually cannot apply for a professorship at a university where you, for example, got your habilitation. This is not allowed. Yeah, so you have to apply for a professorship at another university. It's a highly competitive process. These jobs are very scarce, rare. Yeah, the job openings are very few. In my little field, political theory, yeah, it's maybe one professorship in every 2 years. Yeah, and there's also a limit, legal limit that you cannot become a professor if you're older than some federal states have this limit set at 50, some at 52. Yeah, so you get this prolonged postdoc phase, then there's market system for professorships, and then this age limit, and this is like such an explosive or very unfortunate and very kind of unfriendly actually legal environment for academics in Germany. So this I see as a major obstacle for women. Staying in the academia. I don't have any, research data to support this, but at several institutions where I worked, I witnessed, women in this late postdoc phase where they simply said, I cannot put up with this anymore. I'm out, yeah. And so these female academic exits are very common specifically because of this precarity problem, because of the lack of tenure track system and lack of prospects for a permanent position. Yeah. So this is in Germany. There is now a new law that seeks to address this. But most academics actually think that they are making it even worse. You can be employed on this non-permanent contract only 4 years after the PhD. And if you don't manage to secure a permanent position beyond those 4 years after PhD, you just, you exit. Yeah. But, there's what I think this could be an important reform process, but it would require that universities get reorganized, that you create like more, or alternative permanent academic positions, like teaching positions and other kinds of, research positions. But this is not happening, so I think it's going to get even worse. So for women, so there's this ambiguity. Yeah, there are all these, this norm making, norm setting, and all those requirements built into funding. But on the other hand, the structural and the legal environment is not being improved.
Yeah. Thank you. Karolina, what do you see as those structural barriers? Maybe you already touched on one. I think what you mentioned about the flexibility of the parental leave, if that's on the level of the state regulation, then maybe that's a barrier in Czechia.
Yes,
if you would agree, and
this
what
is
are some
really
others?
the most important one for me, I would say. I'm not sure actually. So the other one I think are financial and then cultural also. So I can't think about like another structural one right now. Maybe there are some, but yeah. I think that the flexibility of the parental leave really, that's for me the number one game changer that would help. Yeah,
and that's maybe even a higher level structural problem, because what you mentioned, Petra, that's still in academia. While the lack of flexibility in the parental leave, that's in Czechia, unfortunately, really on a national level, one of those things extending academia, unfortunately. Before we open the discussion to the audience, and I hope and believe there will be, many more fruitful questions, I want to ask you about one specific thing which I feel is somewhat dividing even the community of the advocates for gender equality and equal opportunities, and that is inclusive language. While some say that avoiding the generic masculinum or any generic forms is really also a key thing in achieving equality, while others, despite being really big and active advocates for these issues, say that it really sounds just artificial and doesn't sound great and doesn't bring any extra value. So I wanted to ask you on what's your take on this saying vědci? English is great because you don't really have gender in language that often, but in Czech and German we need to address that. So what do you think? Yes or no?
I guess I got used to this. Most universities in Germany require that. Yeah, this Germans call it gender Sternchen. Yeah, so if you say Professor Sternchen innen, Kandidatinnen, Lehrerinnen, and so on. So this has become normalized. It's a norm. Everybody uses it, and that's it. Yeah, I think it's I think it's important. I have no issue with that. I support that. I use it. I think within the whole like package of things that we do, it's important to so to speak, keep us alerted that this is an ongoing struggle. It's an ongoing problem. So we should we should do everything. Yeah, like bigger reforms, smaller reforms, and also on the level of these very small daily practices, we should just do this, because I picked up this quote from DFG, which says gender equality in research has not yet been achieved. So it's a struggle that we have not won yet. Only about 20% of professors in Germany are women, despite the fact that on the level of PhD it's 50-50, but then there's this massive, problem of female dropout. So if this helps, sure.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think also that language matters, and I'm really trying to always use both forms or just but yeah, I guess we should stay reasonable as well. Like sometimes when someone, doesn't use both forms, like we shouldn't immediately get angry, I guess. It's also like, yeah. But I agree that these small details in the everyday life actually make a difference then.
Thank you very much. I think now it is time to open the discussion. So I invite anybody from the audience to ask anything from our panelists, or if you have any comments, any extra inputs, that's also okay.
My name is Emma, and I wanted to ask, what advice would you give your younger selves at the start of the academic journey, about, women and this specific topic? What would you say to your younger self?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a really interesting question. I don't think I have a prepared answer to that. But I guess, Well, I was very at the beginning of this journey of mine. I was so frivolous in the sense that I was interested in moving abroad, doing this because I cared about philosophy, but I didn't think about what I'm gonna do, what the career options are. I just, I was just very, it was like an open terrain for me, and I was like, yeah, whatever, let's see what happens. This is an adventure, it's a life adventure. But and in the end, it was a great life adventure. But I incurred a lot of costs through this life adventure, a lot of costs. I don't even know if I'm prepared to tell you openly what they are, I got something, but I lost a lot. Yeah. The advice that I would give myself, or what I told my PhD student the other day, and I guess that's something that I consider important. Yeah, you have to embark on this with some purpose. It does not necessarily have to be career-based purpose, having exactly clear idea what you want to achieve career-wise, but you should do research because or choose to pursue something you deeply care about, and be open to the possibility of pursuing this in different kinds of environments. Yeah. Maybe as an academic, but maybe as a politician, maybe as a policy person, or So choosing something that is socially relevant, important, that you care about, where you can channel your, passion, but also kind of ethical convictions and so on, and then not being fixated on academia as being the only environment where you can pursue this.
I think for me the answer is that I would want to trust myself more. I think the decisions I was making along the path were always a little bit influenced, or I always had to fight with this inner voice, like, are you really good enough? Will you manage this, right? And I think this is quite important, that you don't let this voice influence you too much. And it's actually quite interesting. I had to fight with this until very recently. Still thinking, is this really the right thing for me? Like, do I want to do science, actually? Until I actually became a group leader. And at that point, I completely dropped all these worries. And now I just really purely enjoy the work. And I'm now absolutely sure it's the thing I want to do. And it's really enjoyable. And interestingly, I even think I may be a better group leader than I was a PhD student. I really think that this job is the one for me. So this is good to also keep in mind, that in the scientific career, the job that you do, it's not actually one job, it's several ones. And being a PhD student is a very different job from being a group leader, actually. And sometimes maybe you enjoy some of the phases more than other ones, but I think it's really important to focus on, okay, what do I want to do? What's my dream job or dream vision? And believe that it's possible.
Florian is my name. I'd like you to highlight a certain aspect that I have not felt has been properly discussed so far tonight, and that is the aspect of leadership positions. So you told before that when it comes to PhD positions, there's roughly 50-50. I think in Germany, and by now actually women are slightly in the majority even when it comes to PhD students. But on the leadership positions, like professorship especially, there's a huge discrepancy. I think 27 and 31% in Germany, Czech Republic respectively, was within the abstract least. It's even worse so if you look into the free market economies, like the roughly 620, I think, highest valued German companies on the stock market have only about 17%, 17, not 70%, 17 female top managers. So this field in academia, this looks almost like an offshoot of this much bigger problem that is actually not as severe as it is in other aspects of society here. The focus that I missed so far is this focus on leadership positions. Why are there so few women in leadership positions especially?
Okay, so the question is about the importance of filling the leadership positions with women and what are the measures to do that. No, like I said, this is still an uphill and ongoing battle in Germany that I know best. And the measures that seek to correct this discrepancy now is I saw on the FGAP website that they are create a new program of like extra funding for universities or research institutes that seek to appoint women or other persons with diversity background into leadership positions. So there will be like an extra, funding program for that. So that's one thing that that they do in Germany. Yes, there's this massive effort to really increase the number of female professors. If you, like I said, if you apply for professorship, I'm currently applying for 2. Not that I have any confidence of getting them because it's so extremely competitive. But yes, the job ad always says we strongly encourage women to apply and by comparable qualification, women will be advantaged or they will be preferred. So yes, so this is happening. These are 2 things that I can think of, but this still has not been really achieved. So,
this extra budget on a national level to institutions that actually, follow these strategies. That sounds like something really powerful. Yeah. Because otherwise, many institutions will always say, we tried, but we just don't get enough female applicants that are good enough. But then, I really believe if the state throws a bit more money on them, if they do, they will take the extra.
Yeah. No, but it's I guess that's the ambiguity that we have discussed. It's something where you really specifically hire female feminist hire or diversity hire. It's you hire diversity person, and if you don't, then you don't get the funding. So I don't know. Then the question of like how that conflicts or doesn't conflict with excellence standards.
I would mention, so if I imagine, like men and women, let's say, applying for professorship, right? So honestly, I don't feel that women would be simply disadvantaged because of being women, but they are disadvantaged because maybe having a bigger career gap and the gap in the CV, as Petra was mentioning before, right? So I think that's really important, like how we deal with that. So first of all, to maybe reduce the difference in the CVs in the first place. If there is any kind of difference still, then how do we compensate for it? Somehow, like bring them on the same level because there was some gap, right? And then I think not lose the women along the way. So during the actual study program, right? And then during the PhD, the postdoc phase, and there are different reasons why women may be dropping out more, one of them being children or being not trusting themselves enough or whatever, right? So
Blanca Collis, IUCB, and previously biochemist. I just wanted to follow up on Florian's question. And I think it's also partly, you see it amongst the politicians. You've seen the hate that these women get. And I think there's a certain amount they can cope with. I mean, Zuzana Čaputová left being a president. Milana Králíčková gets so much hate. Danuše Nerudová got so much hate in the presidential election. Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand. So I think there's some women just don't last there long enough to deal with this.
Marcela Linková, so thank you so much for all these insights. I feel that we're discussing some of the issues that are personal at the individual level and some maybe legislative or, given by national strategies or regional strategies. My question is about leadership and how you see the role of institutional leadership in promoting gender equality and diversity. And I'm specifically referring to something that a psychologist in the US, Jennifer Freight, is developing, and it's the concept of institutional courage as opposed to institutional cowardice and institutional betrayal, even more importantly, which we very often see when, for example, people face gender-based violence in institutions and the institutions just don't act at all. So how do you see the role of leaders? And have you encountered acts of institutional courage? Have you encountered acts of institutional betrayal? I would have to think harder about this, yeah. But, first thing that comes to my mind, based on the experience that I have, is I actually have a really ambiguous experience with leadership, and I'll tell you why. It's because that leadership in German academia, meaning the professors who have the security, the job security, who have a specific status, they are a very specific group of people with certain social status, people with certain ethnic background, people with very specific cultural capital, and very specific work habits. And way of hierarchical way of communicating with people. So it comes with this very complex baggage of all kinds of practices, cultural levels, norms, institutional expectations, and so on. So they behave. Germans call it professorial habitus, yeah, and I have a very negative experience with that. Yeah, maybe even horrible experience with that. Yeah, and these are people who usually become leaders in all kinds of research clusters, institutions. They are the speakers of. They are those who apply for these external fundings and to create more PhD positions. Yeah, and so all this then sort of trickles down to the lower levels, and it's sometimes very difficult to put up with that. Simple example, these people have very specific they can put up with very high workload, for example, and so you feel pressure to accommodate to that, for example. That's why, for example, I think it's very important then have these equal opportunity offices because when you have these kinds of issues, for example, you cannot or you don't want to work on the weekends, and it's very hard to communicate that with the leader, but you have to find somebody where you can feel free to complain about some of these issues. So when it comes to academic leadership in Germany, I don't know. It's like I say, it's a very very homogeneous category of people. Usually, like most, just another kind of fact based on simply personal experience. Like most of the female professors that I know don't have children, because that was otherwise they wouldn't have made it all the way to the top. And of course, because they had to accommodate to these standards, then they project that back to the lower level, so it gets reproduced. Yeah, so that's one last thing. Yeah, that's why I think that one of the key things to think about when we, if we want to achieve the gender equality, it's all about the public policy changes, legislative changes, cultural changes, or these like daily, reforms and practices. But it's also about, actively undermining the ethic of workaholism and this like insane workload that these people are used to perform. I think if we don't get rid of this, then nothing is going to change. Yeah, because for most people, then if you have 2 children, if you have to care for your parents, like you simply cannot combine that. It's not it's not an option for a human, to do that. So if this is not going to change on some, cultural level, then
Thank you, Karolina.
Yeah, I would say the leaders really have very big impact on the atmosphere at the workplace. And maybe that's actually the thing that makes the biggest difference in the end, right? Like actually what we discussed here with hiring women specifically, maybe, this is a measure that can end up in a great thing in one cultural environment and in a complete disaster in another cultural environment. And it's the exact same measure, right? So I think this is very important that the leaders really create an atmosphere, show that they care, show that, if you have a problem, you get help, right? And I don't have much experience, honestly. I think our faculty is really trying quite hard. We have an ombudsperson, we have now some ethical rules. I have seen one issue being solved, so there was really a lot of effort to help. In the end, maybe the solution somehow didn't happen, right? So we certainly have things to improve. But I generally have quite positive experience. And maybe the problem is that the leadership has lack of experience so far, and we need to get the experience to become very good at it, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think in the interest of time, I will ask you to pose any remaining questions over drinks or coffee or small snacks. But before we do that, I want to ask each of you to really give us one take-home message or one measure. You touched on some already very briefly, which you think in the next 5 years would make the most difference, which is the low-hanging fruit in these equal opportunities in science that we should aim for. And this time we can start with Karolina.
Okay, so I would say really this flexible parental leave would make a huge difference, but it's probably not a low-hanging fruit. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, sure, you have, yeah. And Petra?
Yeah, I think there are 3 levels, and I think we cannot separate them, and we have to pursue all these 3 pillars of change. We have to pursue public policy change, meaning that there has to be, publicly available, affordable childcare so that women, can combine work and family. In research, there has to be this institutional, changes where you implement the whole range of those daily, best practices for gender equality, but there has to be the thing that I've been emphasizing. I think the excellence standard cannot be derived from male, white, childless person. We have to reduce that kind of idea about what is manageable workload.
Thank you very much, Karolina and Petra, for the discussion. Thank you all also for your input and being with us. And I now return the word to our host.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you enjoyed this evening's discussion as well as I did. I would like to thank our excellent speakers, Petra Gimplová, Karolina Karvašová, and our excellent moderator, Matouš Glanc. And I have to thank Filip Rambousek a lot, because it was him that selected those excellent speakers and had a great contribution to today's evening. And let me thank also our dear colleagues, Josef, Monika, Zuzka and Tomáš for their excellent work and contribution. And before I ask our dear speakers to add their signatures on the wall of fame, I would like to invite everybody to have a drink and some snack and discuss these highly important topics during networking session. Thank you a lot.